The November 26, 2018 meeting of the Recreation and Education Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Alcoffer.
Here.
Mr. Ansello.
Here.
Mr. Felder.
Here.
Mr. Flagler-Mitchell.
Here.
Chairman Turp.
Here. Is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Is there anyone present who has not signed up to speak who would like to address the committee at this time? Seeing that there's not, I would like to introduce Kate Bennett, Executive Director from the Rochester Museum and Science Center, who's here to give us a presentation on the Rochester Museum and Science Center.
I am happy to be here, and this is your moment for science. We're going to wake you up. We're going to enjoy what we're talking about tonight. First, I am past president of the Rochester Museum and Science Center. I turned over the reins 2 weeks ago, to Hillary Olson, who came from Milwaukee, but grew up in Brockport. Came back to Rochester. You all saw the newspaper articles, I hope, and I am delighted that I get to do my last presentation to you, and Hillary gets to do her first presentation to you, and she will bring you science in just a moment. Jessica Slentz is passing out some sheets that we're going to want you to all take a look at. It's probably the most important part of our presentation. It's 2 pages, and we'll come back to it after Hillary takes us on a science whirl.
So when Jess comes back, I'm going to ask her to help me out with this. So I'm the new president and CEO of the Rochester Museum and Science Center. I'm from Ogden. I went to Brockport High School, graduated Brockport class of 90. So who's here from the sort of west side, Brockport? Okay, hi. Anybody knows my dad is Nick Olson. He's an attorney in Spencerport. And my mom is Cheryl Olson, who's been 20 years or 20 plus years with the county. She was at the county parks department. So I'm not new to town, but I haven't been here about 25 years. So I bounced around a little bit and did a lot of museum work. But so Kate asked me as we came in, she said, well, sometimes we bring fun science stuff. So I'm bringing fun science stuff. And what I have is some liquid nitrogen, which is negative 320 degrees Fahrenheit, which is negative 196 Canadian. And what it is very cold, but we're going to soak some Cheerios in it. You're going to, if you want to, I'm going to show you how this works. Here. Jess, you're going to not touch the bowl. Okay. That's your whole job. Don't touch the bowl. So, and I should be very safe though. There were some. So all that's in this bowl is air. Nitrogen is.
Do you want to all see?
What?
Nitrogen in a bowl, they can't see.
Oh, you couldn't see it? Okay. Well, this is going to be fun because Jess, you're going to come right up here. Okay. Stick your hand out. I'm going to give you about 3 or 4 Cheerios, and then you're going to pop them in your mouth. Ready? Okay. 1, 2. That's nice. Okay. Go. Pop them in your mouth. And then if anybody's interested in that?
Sure, yeah, bring it on over here.
Go.
Go for it, Jack. Come on, Jack. That's fine.
That's different.
Oh, yeah. Little smoke ring. That's funny.
Really cold. This is cold enough to burn you if you have something solid like a piece of fruit, but not cold enough
Really
to
fun.
burn you with something porous like Cheerios. Yeah. So one of the things that we do at the museum every day. One of the things that we do at the museum every single day. Demonstrations kind of like this. We don't typically do this home with the kids, just because kids will hold it in their hands and stare at it, and they actually they're not always bright when it comes to danger. I'm going to pour some more nitrogen. Hi, Jess. Give me 1 second. I've got my special glove on. Okay, so now I'm going to
Okay, so here's
So
more
now
nitrogen.
Kate's going to give you the most exciting presentation while I do
Okay, so I'm going to 400,000 people get the benefit of our exciting science programs. And I am so thrilled that the trustees found Hillary, brought her to the museum to lead us into the next several decades.
Are you ready? If you don't want it, you don't have to. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kate. I stole it.
No, that's okay. You can keep stealing it. So, we've got more than 200 hands-on exhibits. You know about that. You've heard me talk about workforce preparation before. You've heard me talk about all the forms of service learning that we do for the kids. This is what it's all about, is turning people on. When Hillary was in 5th grade, she came on a field trip to the planetarium, fell in love with space science. That's what she graduated in from college. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kate.
No, that's fine. We're doing great. They're paying a lot of attention to me. So the wonderful thing is that the trustees did a great job of doing the search because they found somebody who cared about objects. You remember we've got 1.2 million objects in our collection. And that is a Herculean number of objects to care for, and to make sure we turn on people and excite them about science and learning. People are looking for food. They want more Cheerios. So look at your map. On the front page is the map of Monroe County, showing where kids who came to the museum for our regular museum programs and the planetarium this year, 23,000. We also did outreach to more than 25,000 in Monroe County. And you can see all the school systems that we're serving. And then when you look around Monroe County, there are tons and tons of classes that we are also serving, people coming on field trips. So that's an impressive number, 23,000 coming to the museum for curriculum-based programs. On the back of the sheet are those schools and those kids who get help paying for admission or paying for transportation. This is a very important work that we do in partnership with corporations. People are willing to help pay for kids to come here, whether they're in charter schools, whether they're in any, private schools like Catholic schools, and they have an opportunity to come to the Museum and Science Center. So that's a snapshot of the kind of work we do. Altogether, it's more than 75,000. Some years it's 100,000 school kids are having learning experiences either at the museum, in their classroom, or in the auditorium. So those are very important. Today was an awesome day. I'm going to finish it up in just a minute and let Hillary say a few final words. Our Digistar 6 arrived from Utah. We're redoing the planetarium. We're putting in a whole new system. You've heard me talk about the planetarium before. This is so cool. Planetarium is 50 years old, and on its 50th anniversary, we're getting new technology. And the community has been exceedingly generous. And there'll be opportunities for you to come see that and our new collection storage area early in the new year. So when we ask you to come on a field trip, please come, because Hillary will show you a great time at the Museum and Science Center. So Hillary, take it away for a couple of minutes.
All right. Just so you know, Kate is past president of RMSC, and she and I are working together for the next several months on making sure that there is a seamless transition. Kate is amazing and has spent 22 years plus with the museum. I've had a 25-year career in museums, but Kate Bennett was one of those very few people that I just looked up to and said, if I can follow that person's career, I'm going to. And so I'm really happy to be here. Just so also that you know, as I've met and gotten to know people on our board and people in the community, what I'm realizing is something that Kate told me a long time ago is Rochester needs STEM workforce development. Rochester needs people that are willing to work in science and technology and trained to do so and excited to do so. So just like when I came at 11 years old and went to the Strassenberg Planetarium and got excited about astronomy and ended up with a degree in astronomy and ended up running planetariums, there's a way to actually get more kids from more diverse neighborhoods coming to places like the museum, and the museum especially as the science center of Rochester, and making sure that they're so engaged and so interested and they come back, that STEM workforce and those people that are interested in science, technology, engineering, and math stay here in Rochester and take those tech jobs and those science jobs that we so desperately need. So what I'm really excited to do is not only serve the public, do fun science. I never get to do actual experiments. This was the first time I got to touch liquid nitrogen in like 3 years. Don't fool yourselves. This is not my day job, but it's super fun. But the more engaged we can get with people in the area, this way that we just engaged you as adults, the way that we engage kids using things like that, but in a very different way, a little bit safer, is the way that we can get people inspired to want to know more about science. So I'm excited to be here, and at the next meetings I will be here. Kate will come with me. We are working together as a team. So if you need anything, please let us know. And we are your science museum. So, and I'm really here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
So thank you, Hillary Olson and Kate Bennett. Now, with a less interesting presentation, I would like to introduce...
Did I win? I think I won.
I'd like to introduce Robert Franklin, Chief Financial Officer of the Monroe County, who is here to present the 2019 proposed Monroe County budget as it pertains to the Recreation Education Committee. We will have a question-answer presentation after.
So I love science, and I love it when you get excited about science. I don't like it when you get excited about the budget. So my goal is to put you all to sleep. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The 2019 budget presentation as it pertains to the Rec and Ed Committee. We're basically looking 4 different areas in this committee: Monroe County Parks, the community college, our library support, and other educational support, which is really Cornell Cooperative Extension and the Soil and Water Conservation District. Within our Parks Department, overall, appropriations are increasing significantly, like 19%, which is a large number for a percentage. More than half of that increase, however, is attributable to cash capital funding of 4 particular projects that are annually recurring. The amount is substantial, $1.654 million. But because these projects are annually recurring, it makes financial sense to avoid the borrowing and associated interest costs on that debt. Higher debt service on existing projects account for another $1.2 million of the overall increase in appropriation. So between the higher debt service and the new cash capital funding, we've accounted for about 95% of the total appropriations increase. Monroe Community College. Although appropriations have increased a lot in this budget, it includes $4.2 million in debt payments supported by appropriated fund balance from the debt service fund. Debt service would be closer to only $7.4 million if it weren't for that additional appropriation. So basically this is taking the opportunity to use fund balance within the debt service fund to make an additional debt service payment for those short-term notes we issued earlier in 2018 that will be due in 2019. Now, I know some of you are less than thrilled about Monroe County's sponsor support of the college being included as a chargeback on our tax bill, but I need to clarify the method of that chargeback is not arbitrary. I think that is important because last year before the budget vote in December, a comment was made that the chargeback to towns was arbitrary, and we could just as well calculate a chargeback by street or by zip code. Right, wrong, or indifferent, or how you feel about it, I just want to clarify that our method of chargeback to the towns is governed by New York State education law, specifically Section 6304, paragraph C of education law, which specifically allows the charge to be allocated to the cities and towns within the county. There is no provision for any other allocation method. So right, wrong, or different, I just wanted to clarify that point. I also know that some of you are less than thrilled that county support for the community college has been relatively flat for the past couple years. And the context in which comments have been made have been our operating contribution, the $19.13 million that is in the 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019 budget. I do think you can be proud of the legislative support for the college in terms of the capital contribution. I did look back to 2001, the start of this century, at our operating and capital contributions, and both have grown over the past 18 years. Significantly, the capital contribution, where it was $700,000, is now in excess of $7 million. So I do think that while the operating contribution has been flat for the past couple years, I would suggest this legislature is supporting in very real terms the needs of our community college. Our library system support, I believe you know we have the Monroe County Library System and the Rochester Public Library Central Services. The budget for both of those systems were presented to and accepted by the library's boards of trustees and by City Council. Monroe County's net county support of the library system really is comprised of two amounts. The $6.77 million we pay to the City of Rochester for central library services, and the annual debt service on the library's computer and other technological related capital projects. Those are capital projects funded within Monroe County's capital budget and usually debt financed. Again, I mentioned other educational support being Cornell Cooperative Extension and the Soil and Water Conservation District. A little bit of a change in Cornell Cooperative Extension. We are, in 2019 and going forward, grossing up the appropriation and the revenue for Cornell. Here's what this means. In the 2018 budget book, we showed an appropriation for Cornell separately from their allocation of hotel tax. But because New York State provides Cornell Cooperative Extension with matching funds based on the county's appropriation, if Monroe County were to combine those two and budget appropriately, they could actually pull down some additional state funding. So for no additional real dollars, Cornell comes out ahead of the game. It's probably a little more complex than it needs to be in terms of an explanation, but I'm happy to field any other questions about that when I return to the admin table. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. I will now open the floor to any committee members who have questions regarding the recreation education portion of the budget. Legislator Alcoffer.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. On page 102, why is the MCC debt service increasing by nearly $4 million?
Mr. Chairman, there were several capital projects related to MCC for which Monroe County issued short-term debt during 2018. The 2019 budget contemplates the full repayment of those short-term notes when they come due in June, as opposed to converting them to bonds.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, under Cornell Cooperative Extension, page 104, under performance measures, what accounts for the estimated increase in agriculture, horticulture, and 4-H youth deployment development in 2019?
Mr. Chairman, we can respond to that question in writing.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
I will say, Mr. Chairman, I'll elaborate. I don't have an answer right in front of me. Director Larry Staub reminded me that we have been working with Cornell Cooperative Extension for the past couple years as they try to expand their 4-H programming and outreach into local school districts. In support of that additional outreach, Monroe County has increased its contributions to Cornell. While I said we used to budget separately their hotel tax allocation separate from the statutory Section 224 appropriation that's allowed, we've actually increased their allocations. They used to receive no hotel tax at all, but in support of that programming, we increased them first to $30,000, $60,000, and the 2019 budget contemplates $100,000. So that funding has allowed them to expand their outreach efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Legislator Anzella.
Okay, through the chair, on pages 246 and 247, there's an anticipated decrease of $200,000 for revenue from the park fees, and another question: what is the estimated zoo attendance in the upcoming year, and how is that affected by the estimated attendance affected by the expansions and the construction that's been going on and continues to go on?
Mr. Chairman, construction on the zoo is expected to have a significant impact on attendance. Zoo attendance spiked after the completion of the Rocky Coast exhibit. It also spiked after completion of A Step into Africa, and we would expect similar increases or attendance spikes as our renovation project furthers on. With respect to park fees, we took the opportunity to reduce by $200,000 revenue from park fees, including Seneca Park Zoo. We did this based on looking at historically over the past, I want to say 12 or 14 years, where zoo attendance and zoo revenues have been, and we believe a $1.5 million revenue is more appropriate and more in line with what we've seen recently.
Okay, thank you.
So to stay in line with that, I have a couple questions on the fees. It looks like on pages 242 and 246, there was about $400,000 in fees that were reduced, $200,000 for the actual parks and $200,000 for the zoo. Can you explain the total and why it's separated based upon what you just said?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, the zoo fees, we do account for within the Division of Parks for the zoo. The other decrease is attributable to other rentals like lodge, shelters, and we do account for those separately from the zoo activity. So we did take the opportunity in 2019 to adjust both revenue lines. So both general lodge rentals and zoo.
Legislator Flagler Mitchell.
I mean, I got a few questions on page 102. The first question is, for the second year in a row, we were budgeting an additional $300,000 in payments to the other counties. We were told last year this is due to the neighboring community colleges and having competitive tuition prices. So should we reconsider our tuition, or is that not a problem?
Mr. Chairman, if the question pertains to should the legislature revisit the tuition charged by MCC, I would suggest that's a conversation better held when MCC is in their budgeting process, not Monroe County's budgeting process.
Okay, that's fair. And also on page 102, through you, Mr. Chairman, what is the miscellaneous revenue?
Mr. Chairman, in all honesty, we don't have an answer, so we'll have to research and get back to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And one more on this page here. So revenues include $4,244,084 for the appropriated debt service fund balance, which offset the big increase in debt services. Is this a one-time revenue? If so, will there be a gap in the 2020 that the property tax levy will have to absorb?
Mr. Chairman, if this were for a different reason, I would say yes. However, good budgeting means you support recurring expenses with recurring revenues, and you support one-time expenses with one-time revenues. This is a one-time opportunity to use excess fund balance within the debt service fund to pay off the short-term notes that were issued in 2018 in full.
Thank you. So just to clarify, this is a one-time revenue?
Mr. Chairman, this one-time appropriation will support the one-time payment of short-term notes.
Thank you so much. You got something you
A couple of questions. The on page 237, the budget includes $1,654,000 for cash capital. What's that going to be used for?
Through the chair.
Through the chair, excuse me, sorry. My apologies, Jim.
Mr. Chairman, there are 4 capital projects within the Parks Department. I did not bring my capital improvement program, forgive me. But there are 4 projects, buildings and structures, heavy-duty equipment, light-duty equipment, and utilities, site, and access improvements. Those 4 projects are annually recurring of the same dollar amount. So it just makes financial sense to stop borrowing for those annually recurring projects and avoid the associated interest cost with the debt service and convert them to a cash capital funding.
I agree. Thank you. One other question. The salaries will be increasing by 140 through the chair, excuse me, $141,314 more than 2017. Why is that?
Legislator Felder, can you reference a page?
Oh, excuse me, on page 610. I apologize.
Thank you.
Did they ask this question? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the majority of the increase is associated with the settlement of collective bargaining agreements that occurred in late 2017 and early 2018. Because they incurred so late in 2017, they never made it in time for the 2018 budget, as is the contract settlements of 2018. Therefore, the budget for 2019 is going to look a little higher because I'm really trying to account for 2 years' worth of contract settlements. So that explains the bulk of the change in personnel services. I will say there is positions that were reclassified within the Parks Department. And when I say that, some of them were like position upgrades and reclassified titles that included upgrades. I will also point out with respect to Seneca Park Zoo, the Parks Department was in need, and frankly has been in need, of creating a position. We're going to title it Assistant Zoo Superintendent, but this is someone really to manage the facilities at the zoo, the buildings and structures, and this capital project.
And one last question, through the chair, with regard to the golf courses. Is there any anticipation through the chair that it will start to turn around and start to turn a profit, at least break even, or it will continue to run in the red?
Mr. Chairman, the answer is a resounding yes. That has always been the goal. We knew we weren't going to hit that the first year. I don't have 2018 data available in front of me, but I'm pretty sure 2018 is tracking kind of nice. So the goal is to actually break even, if not generate a small operating surplus. And our budget for 2019 does show a small operating surplus.
Thank you.
Flagler Mitchell.
Thank you. Just to follow up on the golf section of the budget here, through you to the administration, on page 252, why are personal services rising?
Mr. Chairman, there were several position titles: groundwork, grounds keepers, grounds workers, that had been budgeted from, I think, parks operations, the people who keep the parks grounds. Because our golf courses are located at county parks, and since they are working on grooming the golf course, it just seemed to make sense to budget a portion of their salary and benefits to the golf course division.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. Also on page 618, it shows that the salaries have doubled since 2017. Is there a reason why? Is that contractual? Or?
Mr. Chairman, in addition to contractually obligated increases, there were also a number of vacant positions that had been expected to be filled in 2018. We'll develop a more robust response in writing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. On page 613 through you to the administration, capital leases seems to be a new budget item in the 2019 for $50,000. What is it for?
Mr. Chairman, this particular line supports the leasing of big mowers, lawnmowers, commercial grade lawnmowers.
Thank you, thank you. And on page 723, to the administration, why are park fees expected to drop 200,000 in 2019?
Mr. Chairman, in our general review of the past 12 or 14 years of parks operations, and because of additional other revenue opportunities within the Parks Department, this seemed like a very appropriate time to reduce budgeted revenue within parks by $200,000 to be more commensurate with what we've seen in terms of revenue for the past several years.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'll also add on that in past years, the Parks Department secured grant funding through New York State DASNY, the Dorm Authority of the State of New York, to renovate the bathrooms at Ontario Beach Park. So you'll see that as a revenue line in prior years that is just, it's not ongoing funding, so you're not going to see it in 2019.
Just a follow-up question through the chair. So you looked at the actuals and the budget, and excuse me, in terms of what came in, and just tried to make the budget more in line, number more in line with that.
Mr. Chairman, we reviewed at least 10 years' worth of fees in parks operations. Page 723 notes 2017 actual at $1.359 million. The 2019 budget is a little higher at $1.449 million. However, the Parks Department has undergone renovations of several of their lodges, including the construction of several new lodges that are generating additional revenue opportunities for the parks. And so far, those rental opportunities have materialized. So we believe the $1.449 budget for 2019 is appropriate.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. On page 730, and you might have already told me that this might not be the appropriate time, but I have a couple questions about the fees. So I see that parking fees are staying the same at 900, or the fees are staying the same at 965,000, even though fees have not gone up, even though we have a projection for a decrease in enrollment. I'm not sure if you can speak to that at all, how we can expect to be able to collect the same amount of fees with less attendees.
Mr. Chairman, to be frank, this is, MCC has a lot of commuting students that take the bus, and Mayor, I don't know what type of student is represented by the decline in enrollment. Those students who drive to MCC and park, or those students who ride the bus. The actual revenue for 2017 was just north of $900,000. The budget of $965 is not wildly out of line, but as the legislator noted, higher. Could it be lower? Perhaps. Is it material for the budget? Probably not.
And then similar question based upon the tuition. We see an increase in tuition even though we have a decrease in enrollment. Is that because we have actually increased the tuition of about $100 per attendee? So we're expecting less but getting more because we've increased the tuition?
Mr. Chairman, just please clarify the particular general ledger account you're referring to. I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, if the question pertains to 406-100 or 406-101.
406-100.
Mr. Chairman, that represents the payments Monroe County makes for county students to attend other community colleges like FLCC or Genesee Community College. So that revenue line is a charge on the tax bill equal to the payments made for our students to go elsewhere.
So the one, just for clarification, 406100 shows a $5.6 million in 406101 tuition. Other counties shows 565,000. You're saying the 5.6 million is what's paid to other counties?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and this revenue line for budget purposes is set equal to the appropriations line.
Okay. Any other questions? Legislator Flagler Mitchell.
Administration, on page 107, how many years has it been since there has been an increase in support for the central library as well as the county library? In library services, Jim.
Mr. Chairman, Monroe County's support of the Rochester Public Library for Central Services has been $6.770 million, dating back to 2016.
Thank you. 2016. Thank you. And also through you to the administration, on page 237, what is other revenues?
Mr. Chairman, on page 237, the other revenue for all of parks has quite a number of items in it. It does include the hotel motel tax that is allocated to the Department of Parks. It includes rentals of the Durand Clubhouse, zoo revenue, including the new revenues for riding the tram service and giraffe feeding. It includes rent the Parks Department receives from outside entities renting our space, like the Al Siegel agreement at Highland Park, the Cornell Co-op extension at St. Paul Street. The Parks Department also operates several dog parks, and we charge a permit for dog owners to use the dog park. It also includes an estimate for insurance recoveries.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, through you to the administration, on page 65, why is the contribution from the hotel motel tax to the park department increasing again? What is it being used for?
Mr. Chairman, although page 65 designates the recipient agency as the Monroe County Department of Parks, operationally it's for in support of Seneca Park Zoo.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the July 23rd, 2000. July 23rd? That should be October, correct?
No, we didn't meet in October.
Oh.
Last month, July.
All right, never mind. You have the July 23rd, 2018 minutes before you. They stand approved unless the clerk is notified by any changes of the day. We don't meet every month. That's why it's July instead of October or September or August. Next item on the agenda is new business. Mr. Clerk.
Referral 18-0321.
Moved by Legislator Alcoffers, seconded by Legislator Ansello. Any questions? There being none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0341.
Moved by Legislator Ansello, seconded by Legislator Alcoffer. Are there any questions? Legislator Flagler Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration, how much revenue was collected for the 2017-2018 season? And what did the county receive? Did the revenue go back to the Parks Department?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we receive $5,000 each year.
Okay. Thank you. And did it go back to the Parks Department?
Through you, yes.
Thank you.
Legislator Alcoffer, did you have a question?
It was answered, thank you.
You are welcome. Any other discussion? No? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. There is no more business for this committee, so the November 26, 2018 meeting of the Recreation and Education Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Recreation Education Committee is scheduled for December 17th, 2018 at 6 p.m.